wasn't sure who was going to do the preach. I thought it was going to be Lord Boateng. But Simon, you did a good job. So we have a little bit of time to take some comments. And the question I was really going to ask you, Simon, which you ended on, was now you are in one of our most powerful educational institutions. You are a principal of one of the colleges there. How do you work to empower the young people that come through those doors to work for a cohesive society?
Well, thank you for that. Is this working? Yeah. I feel privileged to be ahead of Oxbridge College. There are only 3 people of colour in Oxford and Cambridge. So I see it as a privilege rather than a burden. I see my role as Paul has done throughout his lifetime, and many of you have, which I would encompass as servant leadership. Servant leadership. Now, I can't change these academic bastions that are Oxford is 1,000 years and Cambridge is 900 years. But within my college, one college, I can set a tone. I can be a beacon. Homerton College, over the last few years, has become one of the most diverse colleges in Oxford and Cambridge. I can set a tone in which I say, when you come to these institutions, in effect, you've won the Willy Wonka ticket. You have. It's the golden ticket. When people say you're a Cambridge graduate, I say to my students at formal dinner when we're wearing all the gowns, I ask you but one question. What are you going to do with this golden ticket? Will you be one that seeks to fill your boots and be entitled and be puffed up? Or will you see it as a privilege to move society for societal good? I think my job as head, if I can show that nurturing leadership that thinks not just about them, but about what they can do, others will follow. And then we can have a leadership high end in education, but with values that serve society rather than the Bullington boys who serve themselves.
Thank you so much.
I wonder if I could ask a question. How many of you here are school governors?
Mr. Butcher.
Yeah. Because you see, it seems to me we need many more school governors. It seems to me we need many more school governors who can change the content of education and improve and enhance its delivery. Because education is still failing a large number of children. Education is still failing to produce children who are able to be socially mobile, who are able to be beneficiaries of an increasingly divided society. And I do think that governance, school governance, is absolutely key. And I don't think there are enough people who are committed to changing what we get out of schools for our young people to address the breeding ground of the absence of social cohesion, which is growing inequality, which is a sense on the part of large numbers of people in our community, black, white, Asian, that they are somehow being left out. Well, then that has to be addressed by the schools. It has to be addressed by education. And the good news is, the positive news is actually, is that there's some great work being done by the Church of England centrally on education. There's some really quality material out there. But if we're going to make the appointments that are necessary, if we're going to win the resources that are necessary to deliver the curriculum, if we're going to give teachers, good teachers, the support they need, if we're going to address the issue of school exclusions. I mean, I hear what you say, Simon, about supplementary schools, but no, I'm not satisfied with that, frankly. I mean, I think we need to move beyond the Saturday supplement. What happens Monday to Friday needs to be materially different. And the only way that's going to happen is if we gain control of these institutions and resource them properly to deliver on an agenda that addresses the root causes of social division and fraction.
And there's a hand at the back of the room.
Yeah, sorry. It's not work. Yeah. Okay, very, very quickly, Bishop Rosemary will know me, and I've been knocking on her door for some time. This is not about a sales pitch whatsoever. Please forgive me. But I wrote these two books, History Through the Black Experience, that has over 2,500 entries looking at the Black experience across the world over the last 500 years. I was a teacher for 33 years. But trying to get the books into schools is an absolute nightmare. Elizabeth came up to me and she was incredibly complimentary about the books, and she says she uses them all the time. But there are hurdles, there are walls, there are ceilings, and it's really, really problematic trying to get the gatekeepers to open up the gates and to provide access. I've tried every which way. I was on the phone only yesterday to Hammersmith and Fulham Council, and there's going to be a book festival where they're going to invite every single school, private, religious and comprehensive, in the borough to that book festival to look at Black literature. But even that might not be the entry into providing greater material and access to our story and our narrative, and to providing the support that we need and the understanding that we need. It really is difficult. That's all I'm trying to say. And if anyone's got any ideas, please come and talk to me.
Thank you so much. I know there are some other hands that have been raised, so I'm just going to take a couple more from the floor before I ask Lord Boateng a question. This gentleman here. The microphone is coming.
Afternoon, all. I actually have a book from Simon, so I definitely condone what he said. I represent an organisation called Churchgoers, amongst others, and that's basically implementing a mentoring program across all churches. I think the church needs to take responsibility for education. The education departments have got their own criteria, their own constraints, but the church is 80% underutilised. We're volunteers into a church, but only a small proportion serve in a church pastor's council and other teachers' pet. The rest of them sit there and they pay and they do nothing. But most of them are qualified. You've got engineers, you've got role models, you've got people that can act as mentoring role models to the people up and coming, and we're just not using that. And I'm saying, I wish somebody would take me seriously. Mentoring for very little effort can yield fantastic results, and I thank you for your time. And that's actually what I wanted to speak to you about.
I would love the Church of England to have a campaign, not just to educate, but to encourage Black people becoming teachers too.
We do have one. We do have one.
Let me say this. Let me just say this. Let me give context. Where I am in Homerton College is next to the Faculty of Education, and those doing PGCE are associated with my college. I've been at Homerton for 3 years. Every year I get pictured with the next generation of education leaders at the Faculty of Education. In those 3 years, each year I have a picture of about 180 would-be teachers. In those 3 years, 2 have been Black.
I might just ask Stephanie to say a word on this one. Do you want to? Is the microphone here before Jean-Marc gets to you?
Thank you, Bishop Rosemary. It's really interesting to hear what you say, so I'll say 2 things. First of all, Lord Simon, you did a report called the Race Equality Commission for the London Borough of Ealing some years ago. That report has been written into the constitution of the local authority, which essentially means they have to, and it goes back to Lord Boateng's point about local government taking a greater responsibility. So written into the constitution is the fact that they have to make improvements in outcomes along 6 key demands. And I'm interested to hear you both use that word, because that actually was written in the report. Now, one of the demands is around education. and it's about disproportionate. It's about making sure that our black and brown children achieve in the same way as our white counterparts. It's about reducing the disproportionate level of exclusions, and it's about the curriculum and making sure that our curriculum tells the truth about our shared history. So these things are written into the Constitution. So I know within that borough there is a lot of work that's going on to bring those things about. And I know that because I'm also one of the 12 tribunal members that are responsible for holding the London Borough of Ealing to account for improvements in outcomes. And we do that quite vigorously. So to the gentleman at the back that's talked about his book, come and see me afterwards, because I do have some ideas as to how you might might move forward on that. I think in relation to the Church of England, there is a programme, Leaders Like Us programme, which is designed to have at least 50 leaders from the global majority heading up schools. Now, that programme has still got to filter down to each of the dioceses. Now, I know within the Diocese of London, they have another programme called The Platform, which is about raising our middle leaders into senior leadership positions. Now, it's going to take time for us to see fruit from that, but the programme, I think, has been going for about 2 years now, but it is ongoing. And these people are passionate educators, really looking at making sure that we have representation in our leaders at the highest levels. So there's a lot of work on, I think.
Because the words that came up about advocacy, about enabling the voices to be heard from us, but also the voices of the next generation. Because really and truly, as someone said earlier, I think we're the generation, some of us are the generation that have been there for a while and are moving on to hopefully times that are a bit less paced. But we need our young people to be coming through. So, but I was going to ask Lord Boateng, in terms of the place where you have a voice and you have power, how do you bring these conversations about race, religion, and the rhetoric of the far right? How does that get platformed amongst your peers? And they are peers.
Well, yeah, I mean, it gets platformed amongst the peers because there are a sufficient number of peers, Simon amongst them, on all sides in the House, and of a variety of ethnicities who happen to believe that this is an important issue. So let me give you just an example. The all-party parliamentary group on Africa held an inquiry into how Africa is dealt with within the school curriculum. It produced a report, a very valuable report, in my view, after taking extensive evidence. It was able then to present that report to the then Secretary of State for Education, who was a black man. It will be that report will again be presented by the all-party group to the new Secretary of State for Education. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Because my experiences, and I go back, and it's borne out entirely by the wonderful example you give of Ealing. You can operate on that level, and you can do that, and we need to do it. And we need to do it also in the context of making sure that when it comes to resources, the upcoming spending review, comprehensive spending review, provides the resources to make it possible, and that it happens across the government departments. But I do think we have to confront an unpalatable truth, and we need to confront it at this grassroots level. It is that the political dialogue really has been poisoned by the events by recent events. Let me put it in that way, so as not to confine it, because it's been incremental and it's been occurring over a number of years. Look at the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Was it either today or was it yesterday? And you will see a picture of a Asian woman, an Asian naval officer. Wonderful picture, I think. Something should make us take delight in the advancement of this bright, able Asian woman to officer status within our Royal Navy. Then when you read what's under the picture, you see that the point that is being made is that the Ministry of Defence is now saying that it is perfectly proper for an Asian woman to wear a sari under her full dress uniform. The Telegraph then quotes from somebody saying, a retired senior admiral, is it right that at a time of restraint of resources in our Royal Navy, at a time in which we are not able to summon sufficient number of ships to do blah, 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 that we should be celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion? That is on the front page of a major newspaper of the right. Therefore, I'm afraid, Simon, I think it does matter which party people actually vote for. Because it isn't, because what we have to do within all parties is actually to resist what's happening globally, which will happen, Bishop Rosemary, as you know, it'll happen next week at Synod, when there will be a renewed attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There will be a renewed attack on reparation. And that will be fueled by what's happening in the United States. It will be fueled by the electoral success of the right in so many countries in the world. And it is our responsibility as people of faith to speak into the national conversation with an alternative. And we cannot rely on politicians to do that. We really cannot, with the best will in the world. And that isn't always present. So you know, we really do have to recognize that we're in the process of fighting back. And that if we don't fight back, and if we don't speak with authority and passion, then and we don't have the evidence to back it up, and we're not able to put bums on seats. At the end of the day, and Simon is absolutely right in this regard, at the end of the day, who's able to put their hand up, who's able to put their finger, their cross on a piece of paper does count. It does count. But we have to mobilize and we have to strategize so that diversity, equity, and inclusion are not demonized by stealth. Because if we don't wake up and smell the coffee and understand the threat that Farage represents, to understand the space that is being given him in the modern Conservative Party, then and the failure of the party of government sometimes itself to recognize just how much of a threat this man and this movement is, and that you can't ever satiate the lion by throwing him pieces of meat. He will always want more. So you cannot satiate the lion that attacks diversity, equity, and inclusion by saying, oh yes, perhaps it has gone a bit too far. Perhaps we should be... No. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are at the heart of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And if we don't proclaim that, nobody will.
As we end this session, so he got his preaching.
I'll get more of it on Tuesday.
So as we end this session, I just wanted to say, Lord Boateng, you have, without being here, you have absolutely stitched together the conversation from this morning, our keynote addresses, and this session as well, because you have absolutely centered the need for us to be advocates and the need for us to be part of the protest to ensure that we keep EDI firmly on the agenda, and it is our responsibility at every level and not leave it to anyone else. Thank you all very much.